The desert wind howled, a mournful symphony echoing across the endless dunes. It carried whispers of forgotten secrets. Dr. Nathaniel Hayes, a rugged archaeologist, stumbled upon a site that would change his life forever. An ancient tomb, half buried by shifting sands, emerged like a phantom. Nathaniel approached cautiously, his heart pounding with anticipation. With trembling hands, he brushed away the sand, revealing the stone entrance. Hieroglyphs adorned the entrance, bearing the weight of history. Nathaniel, with a mixture of trepidation and excitement, stepped across the threshold and into the tomb's cool, musty interior. He finally reached the heart of the tomb, a vast chamber dominated by a massive sarcophagus. The sarcophagus was crafted from a single block of obsidian, its surface polished to a mirror sheen. He had stumbled upon something truly extraordinary, something that had the power to rewrite history. He ran his hand along its smooth, cold surface, feeling a strange energy pulsing beneath his fingertips. As Nathaniel stood before the sarcophagus, his mind drifted back to a time before the relentless pursuit of knowledge had consumed him, a time when his heart had been filled with love instead of loss. He thought of Emily, his beloved wife, her laughter echoing in his ears like a distant melody. Emily had been his world, his sun and moon. Her vibrant spirit and infectious laughter had brightened even his darkest days. They had shared a love that was as rare as it was precious. A love that he had believed would last a lifetime. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Nathaniel shuddered. The memory of that fateful day seared into his mind like a brand. He had been on an expedition with Emily, their shared passion for exploration taking them to the edge of the world. They had been climbing a treacherous mountain path, the air thin and the wind biting cold. And then it happened. One minute Emily had been beside him, her hand clasped tightly in his. The next she was gone, her terrified scream echoing in his ears as she tumbled over the precipice and into the abyss below. Nathaniel had searched for days, his heart breaking with every passing hour. But Emily was gone, her body swallowed by the unforgiving mountain. He returned home a broken man, the weight of her loss crushing him like a physical burden. He had poured himself into his work, seeking solace in the dusty tomes and ancient artifacts that filled his study. He told himself that he was honoring Emily's memory, that he was continuing the work they had both loved. But deep down he knew he was running from the pain, from the guilt, from the gaping hole that her absence had left in his life. The hourglass on his desk, a constant reminder of time's relentless march, seemed to mock him with its steady drip, drip, drip of sand. Time, he realized, was the one enemy he could never outrun. It marched on, indifferent to his pain, his grief, his desperate longing to turn back the hands of fate. Nathaniel shook himself free from the grip of memory, his gaze returning to the sarcophagus before him. Could this be the answer he had been searching for? Could this ancient tomb hold the key to not only unlocking the secrets of the past, but also to healing the wounds of his own broken heart? He reached out and slowly lifted the heavy lid of the sarcophagus. Inside, amidst the usual trappings of death, desiccated bones, crumbling cloth, and tarnished gold, lay something truly extraordinary. An amulet crafted from a strange, luminous stone rested upon the skeletal chest of the tomb's long-dead occupant. The amulet pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting flickering shadows that danced and swirled around the chamber. Nathaniel carefully lifted the amulet from its resting place. As his fingers brushed against its surface, a jolt of energy surged through his body. He gasped, startled by the unexpected sensation. It was as if the amulet itself was alive, its ancient power humming beneath his touch. The amulet, Nathaniel sensed, was no mere trinket. It was an object of immense power. He stared at it, mesmerized by its strange glow. Could this be the key to unlocking the secrets of the past? But a sense of unease crept over him. He couldn't shake the feeling of danger. The past held many secrets, some best left buried. Was he willing to risk unleashing unknown forces? Nathaniel closed his eyes, the weight of his past pressing down. He had spent years running from the shadows of his past. They followed him, a constant reminder of his failures. He opened his eyes, his gaze resolute. He knew the risks, but could no longer outrun his past. It was time to confront his demons. Taking a deep breath, Nathaniel slipped the amulet around his neck. The ancient stone felt warm against his skin. He was ready to face whatever secrets the past held. He was ready to face his destiny. Nathaniel, clutching the amulet, found himself drawn to his library, a sanctuary of knowledge he had built over a lifetime. The scent of aged paper and leather soothed him, a familiar comfort in the face of the unknown. The room was bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, its rays filtering through stained glass windows, casting dancing patterns on the countless books lining the shelves. Each book held within its pages the echoes of voices long silenced, stories waiting to be rediscovered. Tonight, those voices seemed to whisper louder, beckoning him deeper into the labyrinth of history. He could feel the amulet thrumming against his chest, its energy resonating with the ancient power that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the library. He moved towards his old familiar desk, its surface cluttered with maps, sketches of ancient ruins, and open volumes filled with cryptic symbols and faded script. Among them lay a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with Emily's elegant handwriting. He traced her name on the cover, a bittersweet ache in his chest. Emily had loved this room, loved the way the light played on the spines of the books, loved the scent of old parchment and ink. It was here they would often lose themselves in research, their shared passion for history, forging a bond that transcended time. Now, he felt her presence more strongly than ever, a guiding hand in the darkness that threatened to consume him. A soft knock on the door startled Nathaniel from his thoughts. He turned to see Elena, a young historian he had been mentoring, standing at the threshold. Her eyes, usually sparkling with curiosity, held a mixture of concern and apprehension. She was a scholar of extraordinary talent, her knowledge of ancient languages and forgotten lore rivaling his own. "Nathaniel," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "I felt a strange energy, almost like a ripple through time. Is everything all right?" Nathaniel hesitated, unsure how to explain the events of the past few hours. He had always been protective of Elena, seeing in her the same spark of passion and thirst for knowledge that had driven him in his younger years. But he also knew that she was more than capable of handling the truth, however unbelievable it might seem. He gestured for her to come closer, his hand instinctively going to the amulet beneath his shirt. "Elena, I need your help. I've found something extraordinary, something that could change everything we thought we knew about the past." Elena stepped into the room, her gaze drawn to the amulet that now seemed to glow faintly beneath Nathaniel's shirt. He could see the questions swirling in her eyes, the same questions that tormented his own mind. For hours, Nathaniel and Elena pored over ancient texts, their fingers tracing faded script and deciphering cryptic symbols. Elena, with her innate understanding of languages lost to time, proved invaluable. The amulet, they discovered, was not merely a beautiful artifact, but a conduit, a key to unlocking echoes of the past. "It's like a thread," Elena murmured, her brow furrowed in concentration as she studied a crumbling papyrus scroll. "A thread that weaves through time, connecting lives, moments, destinies." The symbols, Nathaniel added, pointing to a recurring motif in the texts. They represent more than just objects or events. They're like imprints, echoes of the emotions, the choices, the very essence of those who possessed the amulet. As they delved deeper, a tapestry of interconnected stories began to unfold before them. The amulet, they discovered, had passed through the hands of individuals from different eras, each encounter leaving its mark on the stone, each life touched by its power. The weight of these untold stories pressed upon Nathaniel, the realization dawning that the amulet was not just a relic, but a living memory, its existence intertwined with the very fabric of time. One story, fragmented yet vivid, emerged from the ancient texts, gripping Nathaniel's imagination. It spoke of a knight, Sir Gideon, a man of valor and honor who had fought in the Crusades. Gideon, according to the texts, had come into possession of the amulet during a fierce battle in the Holy Land. The amulet, it was said, granted him visions of the future, allowing him to anticipate his enemies' moves and secure victory for his men. But the gift came at a terrible cost. The visions, though accurate, were also harrowing, filling Gideon's dreams with bloodshed and despair. The weight of the lives he took, the constant knowledge of battles yet to be fought, slowly eroded his spirit. "The burden of foresight," Elena whispered, her voice filled with compassion. Nathaniel nodded grimly. He understood that burden all too well. Section 5, Whispers of Forbidden Knowledge. Another story spoke of a woman named Amelia, a scholar living in Victorian England. Amelia, like Nathaniel, was a seeker of knowledge, her thirst for understanding leading her down forbidden paths. The amulet, it seemed, amplified her intellectual abilities, granting her insights into realms of science and philosophy deemed heretical by the rigid society of her time. But her brilliance came at a price. She was ostracized by her peers, labeled a radical, a threat to the established order. The whispers followed her, branding her a pariah in the very circle she had once sought to enlighten. "They feared what they didn't understand," Elena murmured, shaking her head. "The world is often cruel to those who dare to see beyond the veil." Nathaniel felt a pang of sympathy for Amelia. He too had often felt like an outsider, his pursuit of knowledge setting him apart from others. Section 6, A Soldier's Hope. It told of a soldier, James, fighting in the trenches of World War II. James found an amulet amidst the ruins of a bombed-out church. It offered something far simpler, yet infinitely more precious: hope. The amulet acted as a beacon, guiding James through the darkest days of the war. It gave him the strength to keep fighting, to believe in a future beyond the trenches. Section 1, Shadows of a Conspiracy. The library, once a haven of peace and knowledge, now felt like a cage, its walls closing in on Nathaniel. The stories they had uncovered had shaken him to his core, revealing the true extent of the amulet's power and the dangers it posed. Nathaniel looked up, his senses on high alert. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, their every move observed by unseen eyes. "I don't think we're alone, Elena," he said finally, his voice low and urgent. "Someone else knows about the amulet." Days turned into nights, the relentless pursuit of knowledge now fueled by a desperate need to stay one step ahead of their pursuers. Nathaniel and Elena moved from library to museum to dusty archive, their every move shadowed by an unseen enemy. "They're getting closer," he whispered to Elena one evening, his voice barely audible above the roar of the city outside their temporary lodgings. "I can feel it." "Then we have to move faster," she said, her voice unwavering. They were racing against time, not just to unlock the amulet's secrets, but to survive. The trail of clues led them to Victor, a ruthless collector of antiquities with a fascination with the occult. Victor, they discovered, was obsessed with time, with unraveling its secrets and bending it to his will. "He believes the amulet holds the key to immortality," Elena explained, her voice tight with apprehension. Nathaniel felt a chill run down his spine. "We have to stop him, Elena," Nathaniel said, his voice firm with resolve. They were no longer just searching for answers, they were fighting for their lives and the fate of the amulet itself. Their search led them to the heart of the Amazon rainforest, to the ruins of a temple swallowed by the jungle centuries ago. The temple, according to their research, was a place of power, a nexus of temporal energy where the veil between past, present, and future was thinnest. The journey was fraught with peril. They battled their way through dense jungle, navigated treacherous ravines, and evaded the watchful eyes of Victor's men. "We're close, Nathaniel," Elena whispered, her voice filled with awe as they emerged into a clearing and laid eyes on the temple. The temple, though ravaged by time, still emanated an aura of power, its weathered stones whispering tales of forgotten rituals and ancient magic. As they ventured deeper into the temple's depths, they encountered intricate carvings that depicted scenes of temporal manipulation. Nathaniel could feel the amulet growing warmer against his chest, its pulse quickening as if in response to the temple's power. "The amulet is reacting to this place," Elena whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. They finally reached the heart of the temple, a circular chamber bathed in an ethereal light. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, and upon it rested a book, its leather cover cracked and worn with age. He knew with a certainty that defied all logic that this book held the key to understanding the amulet's true nature. With trembling hands, Nathaniel opened the book. As his fingers brushed against the ancient parchment, a wave of energy surged through him, and the chamber around them sprang to life. Images flickered into existence, visions of the amulet's past, of the lives it had touched, of the choices that had shaped its destiny. Nathaniel saw Sir Gideon, his face etched with the burden of foresight, leading his men to victory, but at a terrible cost. He saw Amelia, her brilliant mind ostracized by a society that feared her knowledge, her spirit unbroken despite the persecution she faced. He saw James, finding solace and hope in the amulet's glow amidst the horrors of war, his faith in humanity restored. But amidst the awe and wonder, a chilling realization dawned on Nathaniel. The visions also revealed the price of the amulet's power, the unintended consequences of its influence. He saw lives disrupted, destinies altered, the delicate balance of time tampered with, often with tragic results. "Nathaniel," Elena whispered, her voice filled with concern as she sensed his growing unease. "The amulet, it's not just a source of power, Elena," he said, his voice heavy with the burden of his newfound knowledge. He knew now that the amulet was not a tool to be wielded lightly, that its power came at a price that might be too high to pay. Section 8. A Leap of Faith. Suddenly the air crackled with energy, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Victor, flanked by armed guards, emerged from the shadows, his eyes gleaming with avarice as they settled on the amulet in Nathaniel's hands.
"So you have found it, the key to unlocking time itself. Surrender it to me and you shall be richly rewarded."
"The amulet is not yours to control, Victor. Its power is too great, too dangerous to fall into the wrong hands."
"You cannot comprehend its true potential. With the amulet, I shall reshape the world in my image. I shall become a god."
Nathaniel knew that words were futile. Victor was beyond reason, consumed by his ambition.
"Elena, are you with me to the end?"
Nathaniel took a deep breath, the weight of the world resting on his shoulders. He clutched the amulet, its energy thrumming in his hand, and prepared to face his destiny. Section 1. The Sands of Time Shift. Nathaniel, clutching the amulet, locked eyes with Victor. He raised the amulet high, feeling its energy surge in response to his touch.
"You are not a god, Victor. You are a man blinded by ambition, playing with forces you cannot comprehend."
As Victor lunged for the amulet, Nathaniel closed his eyes and focused his will, pouring every ounce of his being into the ancient artifact. A blinding flash of light engulfed the chamber, throwing them all into a swirling vortex of temporal energy. S2. "Foolish archaeologist, you think you can control what you don't understand? I will show you true power." Section 2. A tapestry of moments unwoven. The world shattered into a kaleidoscope of light and shadow, a chaotic symphony of moments ripped from the flow of time. Nathaniel, adrift in the temporal maelstrom, found himself flung through the ages, a witness to the very events he and Elena had studied. He stood on a blood-soaked battlefield, the clang of steel against steel ringing in his ears as he watched Sir Gideon, his face grim beneath his helmet, lead his men to a hard-won victory. He found himself in a dimly lit library surrounded by the scent of aged paper and leather, where Amelia, her brow furrowed in concentration, pored over her research. He crouched in a muddy trench, the air heavy with the stench of fear and gunpowder, beside a young James, his eyes wide with terror, yet clinging to the amulet as a beacon of hope. Section 3. Gideon's Choice. The maelstrom settled, depositing Nathaniel on a battlefield under a sky choked with smoke. He saw Gideon, his armor battered, standing over a fallen enemy, the amulet clutched in his gauntlet. Instead of pressing his advantage, instead of succumbing to the darkness that whispered in his ear, he lowered his sword, offering his hand to the wounded enemy. Live, Gideon's voice, rough with exhaustion, echoed across the battlefield. And remember that even in war, compassion has its place. As the wounded soldier staggered to his feet, his eyes filled with a newfound respect for his enemy, Nathaniel felt a shift in the amulet's energy. Section 4. Amelia's Truth. He was pulled back into the swirling chaos, deposited next in a candlelit study. He watched as Amelia, her face pale but resolute, defended her research before a panel of skeptical, disapproving scholars. To fear knowledge is to fear progress, Amelia's voice rang out clear and strong. We must not shy away from the unknown, but embrace it, explore it, for only then can we truly understand our place in this world. Her words, though met with resistance at first, began to resonate with some of the younger scholars. As Amelia finished her impassioned plea, a sense of peace settled over the room. Her truth, her courage in the face of adversity, had rippled through time. Section 5. James's Peace. The temporal winds shifted once more, carrying Nathaniel to a scene of devastation. A bombed-out city, the air thick with smoke and the stench of death. He found James huddled in the rubble of a collapsed building, his body trembling, his eyes haunted by the horrors he had witnessed. But as James clutched the amulet, a look of serenity spread over his face. The light from the amulet intensified, casting away the shadows that clung to him. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with a newfound determination, a flicker of hope amidst the despair. He rose to his feet, tucking the amulet close to his heart, and began to dig through the rubble, searching for survivors. Nathaniel, his heart aching for the young soldier, understood. The amulet hadn't shown James visions of the future or granted him supernatural abilities. It had simply reminded him of the humanity that still flickered even in the darkest of times, giving him the strength to keep going, to choose hope over despair. Section 6. The Echoes Fade. As quickly as it had begun, the temporal storm subsided. Nathaniel found himself back in the temple chamber, the echoes of the past fading like whispers on the wind. The air, once crackling with energy, felt strangely still. The amulet in his hand, though still warm, no longer pulsed with its former intensity. He looked around, disoriented, searching for Elena. He found her lying on the ground nearby, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. Relief washed over him as he rushed to her side, checking for any injuries. She stirred as he gently shook her shoulder, her eyes fluttering open.
Nathaniel, she whispered, her voice hoarse. What happened?
We were scattered, he said, struggling to find the words to explain the disorienting experience. I saw Gideon, Amelia, James. I saw the moments we read about, the choices they made.
The amulet. It allowed you to witness its own history.
Nathaniel nodded, his mind still reeling from the experience. It felt like a correction, a balancing of the scales. He realized then that the amulet hadn't just shown him the past. It had allowed him to participate in it, however briefly, to witness firsthand the ripple effects of even the smallest choices. He understood now that the true power of the amulet wasn't in controlling time, but in understanding it, in respecting its delicate balance. Section 7. Victor's Fate. A groan from across the chamber drew their attention. Victor lay sprawled on the ground, his face contorted in pain, his body racked with tremors. He clutched at his chest, his eyes wide with fear and something else, a profound sense of loss.
"What have you done to me?" he rasped, his voice barely a whisper.
Nathaniel approached cautiously, keeping a safe distance. The amulet, it showed you the consequences of your actions, the darkness that consumed those who sought to control it. He saw a flicker of recognition in Victor's eyes, a dawning awareness of the price he had almost paid for his ambition.
I saw lost moments, missed opportunities, a life wasted in pursuit of...
His words trailed off, his body slumping back against the stone floor. The light had faded from his eyes, the spark of ambition replaced by a profound emptiness. Nathaniel pitied him. Victor, in his relentless pursuit of power, had become a prisoner of his own desires, blind to the true treasures life had to offer. Section 8. Letting go a promise kept. Nathaniel and Elena left Victor to his fate, his punishment a lifetime haunted by the ghosts of what might have been. They made their way out of the temple, the jungle air heavy with the scent of rain and decay. The journey back to civilization was a blur, their minds still processing the events that had transpired. Upon their return, their priority was to ensure the amulet's safety. After much deliberation, they agreed that its power was too dangerous to remain in human hands. The amulet, they decided, belonged to time itself. Nathaniel, his heart heavy but his resolve firm, traveled to Emily's grave. The cemetery, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, was a place of peace and remembrance. He stood before her headstone, the inscription worn smooth by time and the elements. "Emily, my love," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I kept my promise. I found a way to let go of the past, to honor your memory not by trying to change it, but by learning from it." He gently placed the amulet on her headstone, the cool stone a stark contrast to the warmth the artifact had held for so long. As he stepped back, he saw a faint glow emanate from the amulet, a final flicker of its power before it faded from view, absorbed back into the earth, its secrets once more hidden from the world. Section 9, Shadows of Yesterday, Light of Tomorrow. Nathaniel, his heart lighter than it had been in years, turned to leave. He found Elena waiting for him by the cemetery gates. Nathaniel nodded, offering her a small smile. They walked away from the cemetery, side by side, their shadows stretching out before them. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange, purple, and gold. Nathaniel felt a surge of hope, a belief in second chances. Section 1. The stillness after the storm. The echoes of temporal chaos faded, leaving an almost sacred silence in their wake. The air within the chamber, so recently alive with energy, now hung heavy, thick with the dust of ages and the weight of choices made. Nathaniel lowered his hand, the amulet feeling strangely cool against his palm, its radiant glow dimmed to a soft ember. He looked around, his senses still reeling from the journey through time, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The chamber, no longer a stage for a battle for the ages, was just a ruin once more, its ancient stones bearing silent witness to the ebb and flow of power.
"Elena!" he called out, his voice hoarse, fear constricting his throat.
There was no answer, only the echo of his own voice bouncing off the stone walls, mocking him with its emptiness.
"Elena, where are you?" he called again, his voice cracking with the effort of forcing the words past the fear that threatened to consume him.
His gaze fell on a crumpled form near the base of the pedestal where the ancient book lay open, its pages fluttering gently in a non-existent breeze. A surge of terror, primal and raw, shot through him as he rushed towards her. Section 2. A choice made, a burden lifted. Elena lay on the cold stone floor, her chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. Relief washed over Nathaniel as he knelt beside her, checking for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, his heart aching. She looked so young, so fragile amidst the ancient stones. He didn't know how long he remained there, willing her to wake. The amulet whispered promises of power, tempting even the most well-intentioned heart. He had almost succumbed, blinded by grief and longing. He made his choice in the quiet moments, guided by his conscience. He chose to let go, trusting time to heal deep wounds. Elena stirred beside him, a soft groan escaping her lips as she slowly opened her eyes, her gaze unfocused, lost in the hazy realm between sleep and wakefulness. Nathaniel watched her, his own heart constricting with a mixture of relief and something akin to awe. She had faced the temporal maelstrom with him, had stared into the abyss of time and emerged shaken but unbroken.
Nathaniel, she whispered, her voice raspy, her brow furrowing as she tried to piece together the fragmented memories of their journey.
"I'm here, Elena," he said, his voice rough with emotion as he gently helped her sit up, his hand hovering protectively at her back as she swayed slightly.
What happened?" she asked, her gaze darting around the chamber, her disorientation mirroring his own.
"It's over," he said, his voice barely a whisper as he met her gaze, the weight of their shared experience hanging heavy between them. "We're safe." He didn't elaborate, didn't try to explain the inexplicable. Some things, he realized, were better left unsaid, their essence too profound, too deeply personal to be captured in words. The important thing was that they were alive, that they had survived the temporal storm, that the amulet's power, though diminished, no longer pulsed with the same dangerous allure. They sat in silence for a long moment, the only sound their own breathing and the gentle rustle of Elena's jacket, as she shifted slightly, seeking comfort against the chill that seemed to emanate from the ancient stones. Nathaniel watched her, his mind racing, processing the weight of all that had transpired, the profound implications of their journey through time. He knew that their lives were forever changed, that they could never go back to the world they had known before they had stumbled upon the amulet's secrets. They had glimpsed the true nature of time, its delicate balance, its unforgiving indifference to human ambition and desire. But with that knowledge came a strange sense of freedom, a release from the shackles of the past, a newfound appreciation for the preciousness of the present moment. He had spent years haunted by Emily's death, trapped in a cycle of grief and regret, seeking solace in the pursuit of knowledge, hoping to find in the past an escape from the pain of the present. The amulet had offered him a way out, a chance to rewrite history, to undo the tragedy that had shattered his world. But he realized now that such power, however tempting, came at too high a price. To change the past, even with the noblest of intentions, was to risk unraveling the very fabric of time, to jeopardize the delicate balance of cause and effect upon which their very existence depended. He reached into his pocket and retrieved the small silver locket he always carried with him. It was tarnished now, its surface etched with the passage of time. He flipped it open, revealing a miniature portrait of Emily. A single tear traced a path down his cheek as he gazed at her face. He had loved her deeply, and her loss had left a void in his life. But the amulet had shown him that her spirit resided in the memories they had shared. He had made her a promise to live a life worthy of her memory. He would honor her memory by letting go of the past and allowing her love to guide him towards healing. They made their way out of the temple, emerging from the cool, musty darkness into the vibrant embrace of the rainforest. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and exotic blooms, the cacophony of jungle sounds, a symphony of life after the eerie silence of the temple. Nathaniel took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the life-giving air, a sense of gratitude washing over him. He was alive. They were alive. And despite all they had endured, despite the weight of the knowledge they now carried, the world felt somehow brighter, the colors more vivid, the simple act of breathing a precious gift. Elena, her hand resting lightly on his arm, matched his steps as they navigated the uneven terrain, their bodies weary but their spirits invigorated. They didn't speak, didn't need to. The silence between them was no longer heavy with unspoken words and unspoken fears, but filled with a shared understanding, a bond forged in the crucible of their shared experience. They had faced the shadows of the past together, had confronted the seductive allure of power, and emerged, scarred but unbroken, their humanity intact. They had learned that some wounds were meant to heal, not to be erased, that the true measure of a life was not the absence of pain, but the courage with which it was faced, the choices made in the face of adversity. The path ahead was uncertain, the future a vast, uncharted territory. But as Nathaniel looked at Elena, her face illuminated by the dappled sunlight filtering through the dense canopy, he knew they would face it together. Their steps lighter, their hearts open to the possibilities that lay beyond the shadows of yesterday. The sun, a fiery orb on the horizon, painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson, a promise of a new dawn, a fresh start. Nathaniel took Elena's hand, his fingers intertwining with hers, their touch a silent affirmation of their bond, their shared journey. They walked on side by side, two souls forever marked by their encounter with the amulet's power, but no longer bound by its allure. The shadows of yesterday stretched out behind them, long and thin, but they no longer held them captive. They carried the weight of the past, the echoes of forgotten stories, but they also carried the wisdom gained, the lessons learned, the resilience forged in the crucible of their shared experience. And as they walked into the dawn, their silhouettes framed against the rising sun, they knew that the future, though uncertain, held the promise of something extraordinary, something worth fighting for, something worth believing in. The journey was far from over, but they were ready. They were home, fade